Hello there, and welcome to Invisible Walls, episode 195 on GameTrailers.com. We have an awesome show today, and also want to mention that we are 5 episodes away from episode 200. I got to tell you, we got some special stuff brewing. We can't quite talk about it yet.
We're doing it naked!
But you'll never know, or will you? We do have some really, really big plans for this show. I think 200 is going to be different from anything we have ever done. I think that much I can definitely promise you. So make sure you get back here in about 5 weeks. We'll have more details on that to come.
Well, make sure you listen every week over the next 5 weeks as well.
Sure.
Yeah, not just fuck off for 5 weeks. It's like, yeah, bye.
Drink your Ovaltine.
Yeah. There is a lot of stuff going on in the industry right now, which is good, obviously, for the content of the show. And here to talk to you about all the latest and greatest in the gaming industry, Marcus Beer.
What's up, my lovers?
Ryan Stevens is here, as always.
Yep.
Michael McWhirter is here for a brief moment.
And I'm fired up.
Yeah.
How many cups of coffee?
About 6 or 7. I lost count.
Wicked.
He is taking your comments to heart. And I also have Daniel Bloodworth sitting right beside me here.
Hey.
Let's get to the show.
What can we expect? What should we be looking for this evening?
All right, so it's about that time. All the rumors are starting to swirl around. We're starting to get patchy reports from various news reporting agencies. I say that in quotation marks. Xbox 720, some serious stuff going around the interwebs right now about what it's going to be, when it's going to come out. When
It's going to be shown at CES, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was actually shown at PAX last year.
Yeah. So the big rumor now is what? 6 times more powerful than the Xbox 360. They said possibly 8 times more powerful. Going to use Blu-ray.
Or a Blu-ray variant, because we did have a little discussion beforehand. And
Yeah, I don't think they would officially go Blu-ray when they can just do something slightly different.
Because then they would have to pay Sony royalties every time they print.
But they'll have a large capacity disc. I mean,
Right.
I think that's a given, right?
Right, and I think that discussion kind of veered off towards the Wii, where it actually used some form of a DVD, but actually wasn't quote unquote DVD.
Maybe GD-ROM is coming back.
I mean, if you're going to press any disc, you're going to pay a royalty, no matter what it is, whether it's a CD, a DVD, or a Blu-ray. Somebody's going to get a couple cents out of that disc.
Tecmo Koei.
Yeah, I mean, they made all
they
that
gotta
money off
eat.
the PlayStation era.
But, I wouldn't rule out Microsoft using Blu-ray spec because, it is becoming increasingly popular with people who are buying discs. So that is a huge, nice that's a nice bullet point to have on your spec list.
But it's also tough to be handing money to your huge chunks of money, sending huge checks to your competitor Sony every month.
Yeah, well, the only thing I can kind of see here that might make this more likely is they're doing more and more stuff with Apple now, like trying to get Xbox pushed on the iPhones and that
Which is
kind
also
of
their
thing.
big competitor.
Yeah, so, maybe they are willing to kind of make those bridges if it makes them the money.
I mean, Sony pays Microsoft fees for buying Windows licenses for their Vio laptops, and Sony's Crackle service is on Xbox Live. You can buy Sony movies through Xbox Live.
Yeah, these are giant conglomerates.
Yeah,
You have to end up working with
You're
each
in
other
bed. You're in
somewhat.
bed with
And
your enemy.
the Blu-ray money doesn't go to Sony Computer Entertainment. It goes to Sony.
It goes to the.
Division.
Isn't the Blu-ray consortium? I mean, it's not just. Is it just Sony?
No,
I thought
it's
it was
not.
a
It's
handful
Sony
of people.
and Philips and,
Yeah.
and Sharp. There's like 9 people on the Bluray Disc Association.
Only
at
9
this
people?
point. 9 people.
Nine people.
companies.
I'd like to be one of those
corporations
people.
are people.
Corporations are people. Oh.
Let's talk about
like
the
the
power
Daily
thing.
Show.
I think a lot of people see, oh my gosh, it's 6 or 8 times more powerful than the
Fuck
360.
numbers. I mean, like, seriously, who the hell knows what that really means anymore?
Yeah.
I don't
Basically,
know.
it's going to be 8,000 I on the resolution. It's going to be in 6D.
Yeah.
It's going to have octuplet surround sound. Look, I totally take your point in the power thing. I mean, let's face it. From the source that really rounded up a bunch of other ones, the processor speed and all that fun stuff, we won't really know until we see it. The interesting things for me were obviously the Blu-ray compatibility or whatever it is, because obviously you're looking at 25 to 50 gig discs. as opposed to the 9 gigs you can hold right now. But the other thing that I saw on this morning that was really interesting to me is that they are saying that it's going to come with a system that locks out used games.
Yeah.
That's the big one. That's the one that will have the GameStops of this world
going out of
shitting
business,
their pants. And I don't even know how feasible it is. I mean,
I don't either. I mean, not everybody connects their console online.
Well, exactly. There is that. There's also the whole, does it tap into your Xbox Live thing? So does that mean each disc is going to be
force you to register
uniquely
online? Maybe.
You can't play it until you register. But then again, wouldn't you have to be connected to the internet for them to validate that? I mean, how else would they do it?
Well, maybe it just doesn't activate. It literally doesn't activate unless you're online. It could be an online only
that
console.
would be completely stupid.
I mean, you have to do that for PC games
Yeah.
now. I mean,
You have to do that
I
for
wouldn't
anything.
be surprised if that is just an inevitability that if you want to play your video game, you have to take it online. You have to do some sort of registration.
But right
it's
now,
not like we're
Microsoft-
lacking in internet connections in this country or this world. And
Right now, Microsoft says only half of the machines they sell are on Xbox Live.
yeah, but time marches on. We got to have some progress here.
I mean, that's a year from now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Not that long.
But again, how many of those people who are totally offline, how many of them are going to buy a 720 day one? I mean, the ones who are going to get those first units are the ones who are the hardcore gamers, people sitting around this table.
Right, but first units, what does that have to do with anything? I mean,
Well,
you're
no, I'm
talking
just
about
saying,
the long-term
yeah,
viability
well, if you're
of the
looking
console.
into long term, they're looking perhaps at this one as, and this is just total supposition that they're looking at this as a 10-year console, and that by the time they get to year 5 and they've finished milking the 360 for everything it's worth, more and more people will be online, more and more people will be interested in doing this.
I think I actually just figured it out. So the same report on Kotaku about the anti-used game thing also talks about an improved Kinect. Here's
Facial
my guess.
recognition.
No, GameStop used sticker recognition. It detects when you bring a box into the house that has a yellow used sticker, and identifies the cover art, matches it to a database. That's it. Holy shit! I can't believe I just figured this out.
Minority Report.
Breaking news.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I think it's going to fail for a couple reasons. First, what I mentioned earlier about half of the people only being connected with their Xboxes right now. And the other part of it is that people will not buy that console if they can't play used games on it. There are too many people that do not buy games at full price that the machine will fail.
So the thing I want to sort of wrap up on this is that they're saying that the dev kits, and this is my interpretation of what I read on Kotaku and the other sites over the last couple of days, the final dev kits will be locked down and in everybody's hands by the end of the summer. And I know, Mike, you have a different interpretation of this, with a view to everything going into production at the end of this year. And so with everything being locked down, the chips going into production, the consoles going into production. So
I don't think that's possible.
Well,
I don't think there's no reason to. I mean, they could start manufacturing them midway through next year and still have them plenty of consoles ready for launch.
Well, I mean, this goes back to my wild and totally random gut, prediction that is based on no fact whatsoever, just what I'd like to see happen in my mind, is that they will announce 720 at this E3 with a view to it, the first units hitting next spring in the US.
I'd be really surprised.
With that new Halo game, right?
No. I mean, I think with Grand Theft
4.
Auto 7.
So I'm not going to rule out anything. I mean, you're talking about like right now we have a certain number of consoles that are connected to the internet, and that may not change in the next 18 months or whatever. But looking back at the things that this generation ushered in, which was $60 games, which we all balked at the beginning.
Well, N64 games were $60.
Yeah, some Blizzard games were, but but that was like when that first hit, that was that outrage, and now it's just the norm.
Yeah.
And horse armor, like people were disgusted by the existence of horse armor, and now it's just a fact of life.
Well, horse armor was perhaps the worst example of any sort of.
But there's
DLC.
just as much dumb crap.
No, there is lots of dumb crap.
But that really,
out there.
I think, was
Yeah.
kind of like a watershed moment
Yeah.
in terms of downloadable content. And now we just look at that stuff and be like, hey, I might buy like some shit for my avatar because
Well,
why the hell
I think
not?
we've
It's too-
learned to just say, well, if I don't like it, I don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this whole generation has been the platform manufacturers testing the waters and pushing the limits to see how far they could make us go to pay for stuff.
And just based on the fact that online activation codes are so common for multiplayer and now single player content, I wouldn't be surprised if this anti-used game thing is totally accurate, and that online codes, CD keys are just in the box, and you have to get online to play these games.
They're boiling the frog.
And what I said
the
to
frog is us.
What I actually said to Shane before we started recording was I can see games going to a $99 price point for the next generation, because you think of how much more data they have to generate and how much more work they have to put in to take advantage of these new things.
Or the games just get even shorter than they did this generation.
Yeah, more multiplayer, less single player, which I think would be an absolute horror story for somebody like me personally.
All right, so a couple weeks ago, we had the developers from Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning on the show, and I have to say that I have never seen a game more unanimously praised by our users than that game. In fact, I got an email from EA over the weekend saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how nice your fans are being. You guys love the game." And they talked about how a demo was coming out very shortly for it. It's been out for a while, and we want to talk about it. Now, one thing I will say, and I think I can say this now, is that kind of off the record after the show, they mentioned that they had a separate team working on the demo for that game away from the development team. So with that in mind, let's talk about the demo. I think we could all agree it was a little disappointing.
Well, all right, so I'll actually add to your thing, because it turns out that I know the PR guy. I used to work with the PR guy for 38 Studios. He used to work up at Vivendi with me, then he went off to LucasArts. And he saw I was downloading the demo on Steam yesterday, and he very kindly sent me a couple of notes saying, one, the demo is annexed from I think, 3-month-old version of the game, which I think is just Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And I'll go into that a little further. And then he also sort of let me know that there was some issues with ATI cards, as in if you've got a Radeon card, some of the proprietary stuff in there leads to a black screen. And my computer's got 2 Radeon cards.
Are you running Windows?
That might present an issue.
So, I mean, having not been in for the episode where the guys came in, but I did listen to it, and I was kind of excited for this. Somebody actually said it's very Fable-esque, and I do get that feeling. And Fable, I love that franchise. I really do. So I did get working last night on the PC, downloaded from Steam. Loved I had to say, even though I downloaded from Steam, I had to sign into my EA account. Yeah, thank you for that one, for a freaking demo for a bunch of free stuff that I'll never really get, because I'll play Mass Effect 3 on the 360. It is glitchy. It is pretty glitchy. There are issues with the camera.
I love. I had a conversation where it was like the first couple of minutes I was looking through another guy's legs at the conversation. And
I mean that's always the risk you run with regards to doing the in-game camera, where it's based on the game engine, it pops in and out. I gotta say, I don't like the timer. I know they put the timer in to limit it, but you know what? Let me pull 3 quests out. Let me do 3 little side quests.
Right?
Yeah. The game's so open world though. Like I'm always wondering how they even make these demos. Like when
how big's
Crackdown,
the file that you download?
Crackdown had a timer
it
too.
was 2.8 on the PC and like 1.9 on the 360.
Because
That's
there's the 2 gig limit, right?
Yeah.
For Xbox.
It was pretty hefty.
But one of
was it
the
on
things they were
PS3?
saying is that actually, is that taking out all of that stuff is what broke a lot of this code.
Yeah, I could see
I mean,
that.
there's a lot of stuff annexed off where you'll go through the initial main quest tree and hit a point. I was like, all right, well you can't progress until you buy the main version, or you can't go literally over to this village until. I was like, you know what? Take that quest out.
Yeah.
Trim it down.
Yeah.
If you've got a separate team, have them working on not chainsawing stuff out, but cauterizing.
Well, I
if
don't
you
know
will.
about that, because this way you see that there is all this other content. I mean,
I don't
would
know.
you
Way of
think
teasing.
would you
Yeah,
think
but
the game is sparse if there was only like 3 quests? I
No,
mean, even if
well,
they messaged
I think
it.
if you message it out front and say, here's
Even if-
3 quests from the game.
You message it, and there is enough quality
I don't know.
messaging and videos out there to show that the game has got a huge amount of content. I think that what my sort of gut reaction is that I think EA forced them to do a demo. Because they're with EA partners, and I think it was a case of, we need a demo. You will put this stuff in there that will help will unlock Mass Effect 3 stuff and blah blah blah, and it'll be great, and all these people will download it and love it. And I could see that the game has a monumental amount of potential. So my message is, despite the demo being a little bit janky and a little bit flawed in its execution, especially on the PC, I am still excited for this game, and I would love for people to give this game a chance. And then, Blood, you played it on the 360, yeah?
Yeah, I played a little bit on the PC, and I tried to play it on the 360. It crashed on me twice on the demo.
Okay.
Now here's the important thing. Bloodworth right now is playing pretty much a full version of the game for preview. And obviously, you know, we're under embargo. We can't really pass our judgment on the game yet. But could you say at least that the demo is not indicative of the final game as far as quality and bugs and stuff like that is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the things that were terrible in the demo, I have not seen them in 25 or 30 hours of gameplay. Like, I saw one bad conversation skip out of all that time, and I was seeing them every couple of minutes in the demo.
So there you go. Unfortunate that the demo wasn't really representative of what the final product's going to be, but at least you guys know that if you're excited for the game, you should continue to be excited for Emular.
Believe.
What the?
He looks stronger than the others.
Okay, so next we're going to talk about Resident Evil Revelations for the 3DS, and that is going to segue very nicely into our discussion about Resident Evil 6.
Operation Raccoon City. Oh.
We actually are going to talk about 3 Resident Evil games today, but we can't talk about Raccoon City yet. It is still under embargo. Obviously, RE6 was probably the biggest story of the last week. Its announcement. We'll talk about that in depth.
Or
but first,
2012, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. First, we want to talk, though, about Revelations. I've been playing it for review. Ryan, you've been fiddling around with it a little bit.
I played about a good hour of it. And you guys have checked out Mike Damiani. What are you doing here?
Yeah,
Hey.
Mike is on the show to talk about.
I played it back
You
at a
played the demo?
I played it back at a Capcom event like back in fall, and I got to play with the Circle Pad Pro actually.
Oh, you did?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I'm actually curious about that.
Yeah, me
it,
too.
It felt better. I mean, it was the best option there for someone like me who wants the dual stick like that. But like, it seemed perfectly playable without it. I don't think it's.
I've been playing it without, and I'm not having any problems.
I
Yeah.
would say the weird thing about this game is, like I said, I've done episode 1. It's episodic, like another game we were just talking about. Is that it has the old school sensibilities of Resident Evil 1 through 3, Code Veronica.
It has the core of those.
With an RE4-ish control scheme.
Yeah.
So there's kind of some mix match between that. And maybe I just need to play
You can move and shoot. You can strafe while you shoot.
Yeah, and the quick turns and stuff like that. This one I'm kind of curious about having the second analog stick, but the jump from third person to first person aiming I find a little bit jarring. And,
it's not as smooth as it could
I don't
be.
know why they didn't keep it. I don't know. The decision was not to keep it like a third person reticule like they did with RE4 and RE5.
Yeah.
Game looks
Screen real estate, maybe.
Game looks really good.
Yeah, visually, it's probably the best looking 3DS game I've played.
The great sound too.
The sound design's incredible.
You were using headphones. I was
Yeah.
just sitting on my couch. I was actually really impressed with the sound. But all in all, the game's not really grabbing me at all. And I did one, I kind of did the beginning stuff where it's a lot of setup. It's a lot of, dogs jumping through windows. Not literally, but that kind of,
There are lots of dogs.
I did play a little bit of the second episode, so there are some dogs.
some
but
wolves.
There's also some monsters with giant penis tongues. I don't know.
Yeah. I think what everybody wants to know is it scary? Is there horror in this survival horror game? Obviously, with RE5, it kind of drifted away from that, went a little more closely to a straight-up action game. And I would say it has returned a little bit here. I mean, you do have to conserve your ammo in this game. They don't just hand you copious amounts of bullets. I have to be really careful with your shotgun shells.
You just have to scan everywhere.
There's also
scanning still in
scanning
there.
in this
Yeah,
game.
and
like
you
Metroid
can't
Prime.
pick up items unless or half the items you can't pick up until you scan them.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like Metroid Prime. They ask you to scan like enemies and look for clues with the scanner and blah blah blah. I don't know that it really adds anything significant or worthwhile to the game, to be honest. And a lot of times it tells you what to scan anyway, so it's like, why not just show me what it is and tell me it's there?
Yeah, I think
No
it may have
zombies so
been
far
some
in
good
what I played.
intention, but not quite maybe.
Wait, you said no zombies? How far have you played?
I've only played like the first few missions so far.
That
The first
seems
few
weird.
episodes. Yeah, they're these weird like white creatures. I don't even know what to call them, honestly.
French kissers.
Yeah.
That's what I've been calling them anyway.
And it's hard to hit them because they move really erratically.
That's my problem is the aiming. Like I mean, here's the thing. They're confining this game to the 3DS, so they're working with what they have, and that's fine. But this is kind of my issue. Like, again, I haven't played too much of Golden Abyss, but like these sort of like big budget couch experiences that are 3D games, when I'm sitting there and you still have to make sacrifices for the hardware you're on, I almost feel like I'm really quickly jumping into a mini game, like especially with the perspective switch. where it becomes
shooting gallery.
hit the moving head, and
Yeah.
it doesn't really feel very well integrated into the overall experience, except for once in a while, if I've missed a couple shots, I gotta go out of that thing, do a quick turn, and run away, and
Well, that's
then
the
just
other
do
thing
it
too.
again.
It has like the old trope where if you get in too much hot water, you just run out of the room and shut the door, and the enemies won't open the door and like come after you.
Because doors are complicated.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a mix of old and new, I guess is the best way to describe it. Some parts of it feel like an old Resident Evil game. Some parts of
Yeah.
it feel more like RE4 and RE5.
Don't get me wrong. I think it's actually a pretty okay game. It's
Yeah.
just not really grabbing me. The
I mean, I'm
stories
enjoying it.
on the story, like I'm not the biggest guy into the Resident Evil canon. I haven't seen all the movies or CG masterpieces.
I mean, I haven't heard that many good things about it. I don't know how
But-
you've enjoyed it so far, Shane, but
It hasn't
Yeah.
really been all that engaging, to be
But
honest
like
with
this
you.
floating city and terrorist organization stuff, setup stuff, wasn't
I don't
really
care
pleasing
about all that
to me.
crap. I mean, that's when I feel like with the Resident Evil franchise is at its worst, is when it starts getting into the whole military side of things. Like, I enjoyed it much
The
more.
BSAA.
Yeah, like, I hate that crap. And this game is about a lot of that type stuff.
But on the flip side, can we just start talking about Resident Evil 6 now?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Resident Evil.
Well, I do want to say one more thing about Revelations. It is a very polished game. And it feels like a game that you would play on a console, but you're playing it on the 3DS. The cinemas look amazing. The voice work is Capcom voice work. But it's one of the few games that I've played on the 3DS where I felt like you're getting your money's worth as far as seeing the amount of work that has gone into the game.
And it runs way better than it was
Mercenaries.
which was one of my concerns. And now that I think about it, at the start of the second mission, there are multiple enemies on the screen, and
Yeah.
it didn't chug or anything or do that
Yeah.
weird frame
It runs
rate
great.
thing.
The 3D in the game is also awesome.
No comment.
You can actually, Ryan can't see it, but you can actually go into the menus and crank it up above
Yeah.
the max that Nintendo allows, and it is awesome. I actually saw like raindrops like hovering like 4 inches outside of my screen, which is pretty awesome. So the 3D is
No, that's because you were playing in the shower.
The 3D in the game is great. Obviously, look for our full review of that game coming up early next week. I am trying to chug through it and get it done as quickly as possible. They sent it to us really late, so look for that very soon. And that segues into Resident Evil 6.
This is the year of Resident Evil, man.
It is.
Yeah.
We got Raccoon City coming up.
I think it's the
it's our
week.
25th anniversary.
It's the week
Yeah.
of
25th?
Resident Evil.
It's a lot of anniversaries.
25th?
there.
25th?
20, wait,
No.
20th.
Is that when Sweet Home
Sorry,
came out
20th.
or
It's
something?
25th for Mega Man, 25th for Final Fantasy, and 20th for Resident Evil. So
This reminds me how old
they have
I
a
am.
logo for it
Yeah.
already. Capcom's doing a lot of stuff, but yeah, year of Resident Evil.
I
I
think
can't
we can-
believe how many games are.
I think
out
we can
there.
all say it was a great trailer.
Oh, yeah.
It was long. It showed a lot of stuff.
We haven't had a piece of media come in this office for a long time that had pretty much the whole editorial team geeked out, standing around a monitor, smiling, clapping, fist pumping,
rubbing our tummies.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, it
chewing
was.
gum.
Were you watching
I
the
was
same
driving
trailer that
down
I was
Mid-Wilshire,
watching?
but-
Do you not like it? I know. I mean, RE5. I mean, I think we're all kind of in agreement is that it's a good game. It wasn't the best game ever. but-
RE5 really put me off the franchise, and
I enjoyed the hell out of RE5. It wasn't the next gen
It wasn't
Resident
it wasn't
Evil
transplendent.
that I wanted,
Yeah.
but it was a great action game.
well, I think, and I put some thought into this why I've sort of like moved away from Resident Evil because I love the first two, I really did. Resident Evil, the first game was I said this before, was the first one to give me nightmares,
Yeah.
and I just can't give it any higher praise because it was such a great game.
So different. For the
Yeah,
time.
it was. I mean, it really evolved the survival horror thing. But I think, honestly, the advent of games
Created it.
Well, Alone in the Dark.
Well, no, Alone in the Dark was probably the spiritual
so
grandfather.
crude, though. Yeah.
But I mean, I really liked Alone in the Dark, the first two in
Me too.
particular.
It's funny. Alone in the Dark did the same thing. Alone in the Dark 2, if anyone played it, is like pretty much a straight up action game as opposed to like a horror game.
Yeah, and we're talking about the original Alone in the Darks, not the bastardization, abortion.
Oh,
horror
but,
nonsense.
But I don't know. I mean, Mike, I know you've been following the stuff, and did you help out with the pop block? I know that was a lot of Jones, right?
It was me, Jones, and Rohan. that worked on
Rohan.
that. Yeah.
The pop block was bloody good. I did watch that again this morning.
And props to Marco too for the graphics.
Yeah, he did a great job.
But I don't know. I'm still kind of concerned about like what the co-op stuff that's been surfacing again.
Well, maybe we should start
Yeah.
by saying what kind of has been established. So
Okay.
they've established that there's 6-player co-op. You can move and you can shoot. There's a cover system, and that's pretty much all they've confirmed at this point, right?
Yeah, and this wasn't there something about like online, like up to 8 players or something like that.
Yeah.
That was a little odd
That was a little
because
fuzzy,
unless
yeah.
they mean like some kind of advanced mercenaries mode or something
Or
like that.
head-to-head multiplayer, who knows?
Yeah.
But is there going to be a constant AI partner like Sheva if you're playing solo?
Well, I mean, there
It
were
appears that way.
well,
constantly,
well,
though.
there were some shots in that trailer, like Leon walking through that tunnel where he was by himself. I mean, his partner could have been behind him, but
Well, Revelations
it's-
is like that too.
yeah.
Like you have a partner most of the time, but every once in a while he'd be like, "I'm going to stay here and investigate. You go on ahead by yourself, girl."
I swear, yeah.
I'm the big dude. I'm going to stay here where
Yeah,
it's
that guy
safe.
is kind of big.
Yeah,
huh?
he's huge.
Yeah, I swear I read something that there will be parts where you go off without your partner
Yeah.
in RE6. So I'm positive that Capcom saw the crap that the people gave for Sheva's AI and that, for RE5.
Yeah, at the very least, they got to tweak that. I
It
don't
does
think
look
it is
like every
bad
main
as people
character has a
said.
person they're kind of paired up.
Yes.
Well,
with.
that's another
They
thing, like-
announced the partners. Yeah.
Resident Evil had since RE1 you could be Chris or Jill in the first one, and RE2 you could be
Claire.
A piece of tofu.
I don't know. It was a bunch of people, and
Leon, yeah.
and they kind of I mean, even Code Veronica had that. Like you played the
Well,
second
you don't
half
pick.
as
You Chris is the
but it's
second half.
kind of the
first
same
half,
idea.
Yeah.
I mean, RE4, I guess you played as Ashley for a little bit, but I don't know. This seems like you're going to be a lot of different characters, a lot
At
of
least
different times.
there's at least 3 main characters. There's Leon, there's Chris, and then there's the new mercenary who is still nameless. That there's been a lot of speculation
we've
about.
hypothesized it's Wesker's brother, and it looks
if
like
it's
he has the cure to the
Well,
virus
What
in
if
his
it's
blood.
Wesker's cloned son that's been grown at an accelerated rate?
Could
Yeah,
be.
well, yeah, people saying like,
I like it.
Alex Wesker,
Yeah.
which I guess this is how crazy fans get. Like apparently he's technically not Wesker's brother. He's like from some Wesker project. So
So there you
yeah,
go.
now we're going off the deep end.
Whatever.
I
But,
love that album.
but this that trailer is getting people
Yeah, I like the Alan
talking
Parsons
about
project.
this. Like how much speculation just over one character, just because they show him doing some fight moves that looked like Albert Wesker.
Well, I will say my favorite thing in the trailer was the scene of the civilians.
yeah, because
I
that
mean,
just
this
adds
is
a whole
something-
other element to the game.
You got 10 seconds of that non-interactive really in RE6 or sorry RE5.
yeah.
RE4, all the civilians were trying to kill you.
yeah.
There was a handful of survivors in other games, and that was fine. But it goes back to I know this seems kind of random, but it goes back to the first Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter when you're in Mexico City, like the most populated city in the freaking hemisphere,
no
and
one
there's
there.
no one there except the bad guys.
Yeah.
And it's something that. Yes, it does kind of still move it away from the realm of horror into more of the action game. But if it's done well, I think there's definitely some interesting stuff that could happen with that kind of like crowd panic sort of thing.
Well, that is being in the middle of a crowd is a very, when it starts to panic, is a very, very scary experience.
I get.
So-
Well, I think it adds to the
nosebleeds all
realism
time.
too, because a lot of times I
Agoraphobic.
play Resident Evil games and I'm like, where is everybody? How do people not know all this crazy stuff is going down? And like now, it's like they're going to be a part of the action in some of the settings, which I think is going to make it.
So I want to jump back, and I don't want everybody thinking I'm totally down on the game before it's even come out. And I think the reason perhaps why I've moved away from Resident Evil in particular is that I'm a big fan of Left 4 Dead and what they did and how that sort of like action survival horror. The other thing that
I would say Left 4 Dead 2 was scarier than Resident Evil 5.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the way they've gone with that, and so I think that's the first reason why I've sort of like stepped away from Resident Evil. I do like the cover system, the being able to do the slide and turn and shoot. Shooting on the run is a great addition. It looks like there's a lot more variety in the cities. You're going to China, you're in America. You
go back to Spain.
You go back to Spain. You've got the big gigantic monster, Gigantor type guy. I mean, it looks like there is a lot of variety. But I think this comment didn't come from me because I was watching the trailer again this morning on my PC, blasting out, and my girlfriend heard it. And after the trailer stopped, she said, wow, that sounded like, she didn't know what I was watching. She said, that sounded like a fucking horrible movie. And it goes back to something that you said earlier about Capcom's voice acting.
Yeah.
And I am stunned that they can do a cinematic trailer that that has really cool animation, and then they intercut it seamlessly almost with potentially brilliant gameplay moments, and they could just ruin it with this horrible voiceover acting that just that basically pulled me out of the trailer. And that's the second reason why I didn't really like the trailer, and I'm not perhaps stops feeling the game, because the voice of the voice work done on games like Mass Effect, on even Call of Duty, Battlefield, The Old Republic, has elevated that to an art form now. Uncharted is another one. And I don't think Capcom can get away with doing piecemeal shitty English translations anymore. We ream so many companies for their shitty English voiceovers, and honestly, the acting on Resident Evil 6, based on that trailer, it was pretty diabolical.
Well, I think it also goes back to something I said a long time ago, which was the stories in video games suck. And sometimes you just have to
I don't think
put your expectations on hold for certain genres, and
I don't think the stories suck. And we've had this conversation. And again, the games that I just quoted to you, The Old Republic, Mass Effect, Uncharted, those are the exceptions. But they are the top. They are the top echelon.
Yeah.
And Resident Evil, I want to see Resident Evil return to that top echelon. I think that some of the things, walking with the guns, the crowd interaction, like I said, the covers, the fact that you see you guys slide into cover and you're like, I'm safe, and then you see this big fucking tongue come out, yank him by the head. Yeah. That was really cool. But every time that something like that was cool, then some idiot actor opens his mouth and just puts just totally yanks me out.
Oh no! I mean, since the beginning, I've always seen Resident Evil as
campy.
Yeah, I don't understand. It's never been
I didn't think the first one. I thought the first two weren't campy.
I mean, you shouldn't assume that
Jill Sandwich
doesn't continue that way. It doesn't mean
Master
you
of
say,
Unlocking.
it's okay for that game to have that because I think that's what it's supposed to have. You should carry the same expectations for a Resident Evil game as you do for any other game.
Yeah. And look, I hope I get proven wrong, and I hope the voice acting is improved and is placeholder or whatever, because the stuff I've seen otherwise really sucked me in. And honestly, when I watched the pop lock, I turned the volume off, and watching the pop lock and watching the video itself was way more enjoyable than listening to the actors saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President," or "That bitch, what has she done?"
Yeah.
I can't wait for the outcry about somebody calling a woman a bitch in a video game again.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill Sandwich.
You're right.
All right, so for the last 10 days, you guys have seen our 2012 Ultimate Game Preview on Game Trailers. Thank you very much for going and watching all those. It has been a huge success, and we'll definitely be back next year. But now it's come to the point where we have published our top 10 most anticipated games of 2012. Marcus is biting his lip. We're not going to go through every single game on this list. We will put it up on the screen for you guys to see, although you should go watch the video because we spent a lot of time on it. Also, keep in mind, folks, that this year we gave you the ability to go and vote for your favorite game. So we created this user's choice video. I'm not sure if it's up on the site yet. If not, it will be definitely be up by the end of day today. So go take a look. I think what you'll see is that some games have huge communities that mobilize and vote, and others don't. But we gave you the opportunity this year, so don't cry if your favorite game didn't make the top 10. Now let's talk about our top 10. Marcus, looking at our list, what do you think is sort of the most glaring or controversial pick that we made?
All right, so I wasn't involved with this, and I mean, when you gave me this list, I got to say numbers 9, 8, and 7, I totally crossed off my top 10. Especially number 7. I'm also surprised at I would have swapped Mass Effect and Resident Evil. The one thing I would say is the biggest glaring miss is actually Diablo 3. I think that that game's coming, and that game is going to be a bunch of fun, and to not include a Blizzard.
You voted
game.
on our poll, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I didn't vote. I didn't do anything to your poll, Ryan.
I think the
Thank
beta
you.
for that game killed that game for me. It didn't kill it, but it definitely.
It just made me more excited. I mean, it basically reinforced how much I loved.
I love Diablo,
1 and 2.
but you know what it is. I mean, that's my issue.
Yeah,
It's all about
it's
all about the intricacies of getting really into it. And
Okay, well, you could say that about several games on this list.
Yeah, can I get my comment in here real quick?
So, that was my one. Mass
Everything
Effect.
here except for The Last of Us is from a known franchise.
Yeah.
There's a lot of numbers. There's some that don't have numbers, but guess what? Tomb Raider, been around the block.
Marcus, you know what I think I figured out? You do not like games that require hand-eye coordination.
I would actually disagree on that.
You like games that you click a lot, menus, stuff like that?
I mean, I'm a sucker for RPGs. RPGs is definitely my thing, but I do like shooters. I mean, shooters and
but you don't really play them anymore.
I think it's because I got burnt out having PR'd so many of them.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, I was known in the to a lot of the press as the PC shooter guy because I'd done Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six, Fear, Black Hawk Down, Joint Ops, and I did them
Wear
all
your
in a
ass
row.
out.
I mean, that's why Vivendi hired me, because they hired me to do the Fear PR because they knew I did PC shooters.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's why I got a little bit burned out. But there are games like Dead Island, Deus Ex that that have a little bit more about them.
Yeah.
But I would just say that Mass Effect, I would prefer that to be higher. Last of Us, looking forward.
Just
top three.
Talk about
I
our Mass
don't-
Effect pick quickly.
Yeah.
I think the reason it ended up so low at number 6 is because we feel like we know everything about the game, and at this point, really, all that's left is for us to play the game.
And I would say it also seems very similar to 2.
Yeah.
As 2 was very different from 1, which seemed intriguing.
Don't get us wrong, we're very excited to play the game.
And
but
if Mass Effect 3 is basically Mass Effect 2 with a new storyline, I will be fucking happy.
yeah, I think a lot of people will. So go ahead, Ryan.
I mean, I was just like, everything here is a sequel, and are we part of the problem? Maybe yes and no, but there aren't that many original ideas out there that you can be overly hyped for. Though I would say probably my personal number 11 would be the and again it's a sequel, is the Firaxis resurrecting the tactical XCOM.
Yeah.
And I think if anyone can make a game that will work both on PC, a strategy game that will work both on PC and consoles, and it's not a JRPG tactical SPG or TLMQV.
Now you're just making up letters.
Yeah, but I think this is definitely one to watch.
Now, Mike, you and I, the biggest discussion we had was we'd already kind of decided our list, and then Resident Evil 6 was debuted. So we had to kind of go back and have a discussion about where it should fall, if at all, into this countdown. Now, Mike and I were on the side. It basically came down to which should be rated higher, Resident Evil 6 or The Last of Us. Mike and I were on the side of Resident Evil 6, and pretty much the rest of the editorial staff was on the side of The Last of Us, which is why it ended up there at number 3. Mike, what was your perspective on those two games there?
I mean, I'm maybe a little bit opposite of what Ryan's saying. I'm the type of person who, the more I see of something, even if it's a known, from a known franchise, the more I can get excited about it. I mean, there is that line you cross where you know too much about it.
Yeah.
But there's that line where it's just enough, and Resident Evil 6 is still on that line where very excited for it, anticipating it. They showed off just enough where you think you know what's going on, but there's a lot of hints. We didn't know if running and shooting would be in there at first until they confirmed it. I mean, this list was done before that, so. Yeah. I mean, but Last of Us, I know the pedigree of Naughty Dog. I know the Uncharted series. I love the Uncharted series. It's just, to me, they just showed off a concept there and a premise. And while, I mean, it's RE6 and Last of Us are right there back to back on my list. It's just, I didn't see enough of Last of Us to get me that excited and just show me off a little bit of gameplay. Just show me something of the gameplay, and then that would have pushed it over the edge for me probably. RE6 actually showed me gameplay, just enough of it, and I was like, it looks the same, but it's faster paced. They're definitely doing something a little different there. There's hints of stuff like that. That was the difference for me. They showed off. RE6 was almost the perfect trailer, showing off just enough. Last of Us was more of a teaser that didn't show off enough. So
yeah, I think my perspective on the whole thing is if you laid those two games down on a table and said you could play one right now, I would have chosen Resident Evil 6. Or if somebody said this is the last game you could play before you die, choose between one of these two games, I would choose Resident Evil 6 because the developers have a track record of making excellent games.
I would ask how long
like
the
that.
game is.
Right.
Will
it last a million
Farmville?
years?
You know what? You had me then. You had me up until you said that the developer's track record.
Yeah.
And I would say that, honestly, Last of Us, and bear with me, Naughty Dog, new IP, and
Never made a game like that.
They've never made a game like this. But as of right now, after Resident Evil 5 and some of the issues
the
that
end of
game
Uncharted doesn't count?
I would say that Last of Us, and these games are going to be very comparable, I think. I think, Last of Us for me leaps out as, thank God there's some new IP on there, even though it is another zombie game. This looks like perhaps where Resident Evil should be by now. Where, and again, we've not seen gameplay, total supposition, gut reaction. So
my perspective on that was tone. To me, The Last of Us kind of carried over that same tone as the Dead Island trailer, but I feel more like Naughty Dog can actually pull that off.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are kind of missing. They have all these zombie games that are very, hyper and adrenaline rush, or just plain out goofy on some of them. And people want something that's going to kind of get under their skin a little bit and kind of creep them out and make them think about some of this, some of these kind of twisted situations. So.
Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I don't know. We're talking about a team that's been making games for 20 years that have scared the pants off of me and unsettled me and taken me places I never thought I'd go. And then we're talking about a team who's never done any of that. So to me, it's very close. I agree. It was a very tough decision. But in my opinion, I would rather play, based upon what I know now, I would choose to play Resident Evil 6. Bloodworth, what was the one game on this list that you thought maybe was a little out of sorts or you didn't quite agree with?
Halo 4 for me is the one I brought up the most. To me, it's still such an unknown quantity, and it feels almost like, Bungie's completed the story arc, and after this feels unnecessary. Even a lot of stuff that's been happening in the past few years feels unnecessary. So it's like we're continuing a franchise because we know it's going to sell a lot. And I just feel like this new studio has to kind of prove themselves that they can create a new.
Or do you think that they're creating one because people want it?
Well, yeah, but I mean, people want it, but does that necessarily speak to the story itself needing it, and will that actually be good to continue on with?
Ooh. Blood's just made me think of something. You know what's missing on this top 10 list? Most anticipated? I don't see the letters COD on this list at all.
We cut it out because it hadn't been officially announced yet. So
it's been confirmed by Kotick that it's coming because he confirmed it a couple of weeks ago.
Well, we know it's coming, but it hasn't even been officially announced yet.
Okay.
If it had, I don't even know if it would have made this list anyway. It would have been borderline probably.
Yeah, that's interesting.
BioShock Infinite won. No argument from anyone on the editorial team on that one. That's the game we're most jacked up about. But I think you'll see in the user's choice video, if it's not live already, that what I said a few months ago about how the game is not tracking with people. Yeah,
I think it's one of those ones that is a critical darling, and I hope that it transfers into sales. I got to say, hats off to you for the top 3. I cannot argue with that top 3 at all. I mean, even with number 2 GTA, I wasn't the biggest fan of the last one, mainly because, in my view, it robbed Fallout of Fallout 3 of Game of Year. But I got to say that top 3 shows that we are in for a kick-ass 2012.
I think the whole top 10, and in fact, if you watch the Ultimate Gaming preview, I mean, each one of those genres had like 14 to 20 games in it, and we were pretty picky about what games we put in there. So 2012 is going to be awesome. All right, that's it for episode 195 of Invisible Walls. Before we go, we do have a couple things we want to mention. One, we do have some free codes for Gears of War 3 Phoenix Rising DLC. You'll have to follow Invisible Walls on Twitter to get these codes. They're worth a lot of money, so make sure you follow us on Twitter over the weekend. And on a much more serious note, a very good friend of ours inside the industry is having kidney failure. Marcus, you want to kind of give him the details on that?
Yeah. So this chap we know, Mike Schilling, he's been around for a very long time. He's PR'd Konami, Sony Computer Entertainment, and a couple of years ago he was basically diagnosed with end-stage renal disease, which basically means his kidneys have stopped working. Yeah. And I mean, this is not just for Michael. This is just this is for everybody who suffers with this. And we're putting a link up on the screen right now that actually sends you to some information about the disease and just getting tested, because the more of us who get tested, the more chance there are of finding donors.
It's very hard to match a donor. And the more people that get into the database, the higher the probability that these people out there who need kidneys can sort of link up with you, and it can become a possibility to actually save their lives.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things in the UK we're encouraged to do. On here in California, when you get a driver's license, is put yourself on the donor register. So God forbid something happens, that you have an accident or something, that you can at least give the gift of life to somebody else. And it's something that's really important. I mean, it's important obviously to us because it's been brought home by the fact that a guy we have known for 10, 15 years is now suffering, and he is genuinely a nice guy.
He is one of the good people in the video game industry.
Yeah, he's not a dick like I am. He is actually liked by a lot of people.
Yeah, he's a really good guy.
There's not many PR people you can actually say that about. After 15
well, I can't
years.
think of too many PR people that I would take the time to bring this up on the show about. To be honest with you, he is one of those guys that the first time you meet him, you never forget him.
Yeah.
So go out there, try to get into the database. You never know. You may be able to save Michael or somebody else's life out there. I mean, I don't know if there's any better feeling in the world than helping save someone's life. So
we got to say, Mike, we are pulling for you, mate.
Yeah, man.
You're a good man.
Anyway, that's it for 195. Just 5 weeks away from the big 200. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Invisible Walls is up and out.